The vanishing on Cedar Ridge. The coffee was still warm when Detective Sarah Chen arrived at the abandoned vehicle, steam rising from the paper cup, sitting untouched on the dashboard of the silver Honda Accord. The driver's door hung open like a broken wing, keys dangling from the ignition, purse intact on the passenger seat, with wallet and phone still inside. 28-year-old Emma Rodriguez had simply vanished into the morning mist that clung to Cedar Ridge like a shroud, leaving behind only questions and the faint scent of her vanilla perfume lingering in the mountain air. Chen crouched beside the car, her breath forming small clouds in the crisp October air as she surveyed the scene. The gravel shoulder showed signs of a struggle, scuff marks in the dirt, a single earring glinting in the pale sunlight, and tire tracks that didn't match Emma's Honda. The journalist had been driving to meet a source about her investigation into missing persons cases in rural counties, an irony that wasn't lost on the detective as she photographed every detail with methodical precision. The mountain road stretched empty in both directions, flanked by towering pines that seemed to whisper secrets in the wind. Emma's editor at the Tribune had called the police when she failed to show up for their afternoon editorial meeting, something completely out of character for the ambitious reporter who had never missed a deadline in 3 years. Her apartment revealed a meticulous planner, calendar marked with interviews, research materials spread across her desk, and a partially written article about a pattern she'd discovered in disappearances across 5 counties. The last entry in her notebook was a phone number circled in red ink, and the words "he knows something" written in her distinctive handwriting. The number belonged to Marcus Webb, a 45-year-old mechanic who lived in an isolated cabin 15 miles from where Emma's car was found. When Chen and her partner, Detective Mike Torres, knocked on his weathered front door, they found a man with calloused hands and nervous eyes who claimed he'd never heard of Emma Rodriguez. But the detective noticed the fresh scratches on his forearms and the way he kept glancing toward the woods behind his property, as if expecting something to emerge from the shadows between the trees. Webb's alibi seemed solid at first. He'd been at Murphy's bar until closing time the night before Emma disappeared, with 3 regulars willing to vouch for his presence. But the bartender remembered something else. Webb had received a phone call around 10:30 that made him go pale before he rushed out, leaving his beer half-finished on the scarred wooden bar. Security footage from the gas station down the road showed his rusted pickup truck heading towards Cedar Ridge at 11:15, exactly the time Emma would have been driving home from her late interview with another source. As Shen dug deeper into Webb's background, a disturbing pattern emerged. 3 other young women had gone missing within a 50-mile radius over the past 2 years, all of them professional women driving alone on isolated mountain roads. The local sheriff had dismissed the disappearances as coincidental. But Emma's research suggested something far more sinister. Her notes contained detailed maps marking the locations where each woman was last seen, with Webb's cabin sitting like a spider at the center of an invisible web. The breakthrough came from an unexpected source, a hiker who'd gotten lost on the mountain trails 3 months earlier and stumbled across a hidden bunker built into a hillside. The man had been too frightened to report it at the time, but Emma's disappearance prompted him to come forward with a story that made Chen's blood run cold. He described hearing voices from underground, the sound of someone crying, and seeing Webb emerge from a camouflaged entrance carrying supplies. The hiker had hidden until the mechanic drove away, then fled without investigating further, haunted by what he might have discovered. Armed with a search warrant and a team of officers, Chen approached the hillside location on a gray dawn that seemed to absorb all sound and color. The bunker's entrance was masterfully concealed beneath layers of branches and carefully arranged rocks, invisible to anyone not looking for it. When they finally located the heavy wooden door hidden behind the facade, Chen felt her heart hammering against her ribs as she called out Emma's name into the darkness below. The underground space was larger than expected, a series of connected rooms carved into the hillside with military precision. Emergency lighting cast eerie shadows on the walls, and the air smelled of fear and desperation. In the first room, they found evidence of prolonged captivity, mattresses on the floor, chain marks on the walls, and personal belongings that belonged to the missing women. Emma's press badge lay discarded in a corner, but there was no sign of her or any of the other victims. Webb had vanished as completely as his captives, leaving behind only empty rooms and the echo of unspeakable crimes. His cabin showed signs of hasty departure. Drawers pulled open, important papers missing, and his truck nowhere to be found. A neighbor mentioned seeing him loading boxes into a different vehicle 2 days after Emma's disappearance, but couldn't provide a clear description of the car or its license plate. The mechanic had planned his escape with the same methodical precision he'd used to construct his underground prison. The investigation expanded across state lines as Shen realized they were dealing with someone who had been perfecting his methods for years. Phone records revealed that Webb had been using multiple identities and had connections to similar disappearances in neighboring states. His real name wasn't even Marcus Webb. That identity had been stolen from a man who died in a car accident 5 years earlier. The person they were hunting was a ghost who left behind only pain and empty spaces where lives used to be. Emma's laptop, found hidden in the bunker, contained the final piece of the puzzle. Her investigation had uncovered a network of men who shared information about potential victims through encrypted channels on the dark web. They called themselves collectors, and Emma had gotten too close to exposing their operation. Her last email, never sent, was addressed to the FBI with a detailed report about the network and the evidence she'd gathered. She had known she was in danger, but had continued pursuing the story because she believed the truth was more important than her safety. 3 weeks after Emma's disappearance, a trucker spotted smoke rising from a remote valley 40 miles north of Cedar Ridge. Fire crews found Webb's pickup truck burned down to the metal frame, but no sign of the man himself. Inside the destroyed cab, investigators discovered melted remains of what appeared to be identification documents and electronic devices. Whether Webb had died in the fire or staged his own death remained unclear, but the discovery marked the end of the active search, while leaving Chen with the bitter taste of incomplete justice. The case generated national attention when Emma's story was published posthumously, her investigation helping to expose the network that had operated in shadows for years. Her work led to the arrest of 6 other men across 4 states, and the rescue of 2 women who had been held captive for over a year. But for every answer Emma's research provided, it raised new questions about how many victims there might be, and whether the man they knew as Marcus Webb would ever face justice for his crimes. Chin kept Emma's notebook on her desk as a reminder that some cases never truly close. They just fade into the background noise of unsolved mysteries that haunt small towns and mountain communities. The detective continued to receive tips about Webb sightings. A man matching his description seen at truck stops, reported working construction jobs under assumed names, or spotted in security footage from towns hundreds of miles away. Each lead proved false, but Chen followed everyone with the dedication of someone who knew that stopping meant giving up on Emma and all the others who deserved better than an empty grave and unanswered questions. The bunker was sealed and later filled with concrete, but local residents still avoided that section of the mountain. Children dared each other to walk past the site on Halloween, telling ghost stories about voices that could still be heard underground on quiet nights. Chen didn't believe in ghosts, but she understood why people found it easier to imagine supernatural explanations than to accept that monsters could be so ordinary, so capable of blending into everyday life while harboring such darkness. Emma's parents established a foundation in her memory to help investigate cold cases involving missing women, particularly those whose disappearances had been dismissed or inadequately investigated. Chen served on the board, using her experience to train other detectives in recognizing patterns that might indicate organized criminal activity. The Foundation's first major success came when they helped solve a 5-year-old case in Montana, using Emma's research methods to connect seemingly unrelated disappearances. On the anniversary of Emma's disappearance, Chen returned to the spot where the Honda was found, now marked only by a small memorial plaque placed by the local community. The mountain road looked the same, empty and peaceful in the morning light, but the detective knew better than to trust appearances. She had learned that evil often wore ordinary faces, and that the most dangerous predators were those who had mastered the art of invisibility, moving through society without leaving ripples, until someone like Emma Rodriguez had the courage to look closer. The case file remained open, one of dozens that filled Chen's cabinets with stories of people who had vanished without explanation. But Emma's story was different, because it had exposed something larger, a network of predators who had counted on silence and indifference to protect their activities. Her investigation had shined light into dark corners and forced authorities to take missing persons cases more seriously, particularly those involving women traveling alone in remote areas. As Chen drove away from the memorial, she carried with her the weight of unfinished business and the hope that somewhere, in some other jurisdiction, another detective was following leads that might finally bring the man they knew as Marcus Webb to justice. The truth had a way of surfacing. Eventually, Emma had believed that with absolute conviction, and Chen held on to that faith even as the mountain road disappeared in her rearview mirror, taking with it the secrets that the pines had witnessed but would never reveal.